Hello, and welcome to Insert Character, with a show where we talk about characters. I guess it's self-explanatory, I don't know. I'm Dylan, you may know me as Auram, and today, I got a fun guest with me. His name's Houston. Introduce yourself, Houston.
Hello, I'm Houston. I work for Comic Storian as his editor, personal chef, assistant. You know, you name it, I do it.
It's a good time.
And I also created Chef Huey.
You did.
It's very new, but it's coming.
I was going to mention that if you didn't, so I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
But, so Houston, just like myself, is an editor for Comic Storian, so I'm going to try and keep the first couple episodes in the Comic Storian family for all you people on it. He also runs the Patreon. I don't know. Did you mention that? Yeah. So
I do run the Patreon, that's right. So if you're talking on the Patreon, most of the time you're talking to me. If it's a question for Benny, it is Benny. But other than that, I'm the one that runs the giveaways, all that fun stuff on Patreon.
Yeah. So if any of you are, this is also a Comic Storian Patreon early access show. So if you're watching it over there, it's Houston's fault.
Sorry, I put it up. My bad.
It's okay. This is being recorded before the first one has been released on my channel live. So I don't fully know if people like this yet, but I hope they do because we're recording a second episode.
It did well on Patreon.
Yeah, I saw this. People seem to enjoy it, so that's good. So Houston, what character or characters, I guess, have you brought with you today?
I am bringing the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah, they're a fun group from what I've heard.
They are.
I don't know jack shit about the Power Rangers. So.
Well, good. I can just make things up, and you will have no idea. It's perfect.
So backstory, and we'll both go into like our experience with them. But for as far as I'm concerned, I had a friend in middle school who was really into Power Rangers, like so into Power Rangers that he would pretend he would like morph into one of the Power Rangers and then attack other children on the schoolyard. That it was interesting. But
in middle school?
Yeah, in middle school.
That might have been. All right, whatever. To each their own.
He was a cool dude.
Elementary is good school. I understand that.
Yeah. But so I tried to. He was one of my best friends, so I tried to get into Power Rangers for the sake of him, but I never could, and I don't know why. But they've always seemed interesting. But I've watched a couple episodes of a season or two and haven't read any of the comics. So yeah.
Well, that's the problem.
I was gonna ask you about that later, but yeah. So
we'll get to that later.
Yeah. What's your history with the Mighty Morphin Boys?
So, as most people my age, I know you won't believe me, people out there in the internet worlds, that I'm actually 30, but I grew up watching the Power Rangers from the get-go, from season 1 and onward. I was really only into the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's what I grew up with. Luckily, that's who the comics follow.
Right.
There's so many different kinds of Power Rangers out there now. It's still going as far as I know. I haven't really watched it. But the comics, on the other hand, I've read almost all of them.
Have you read the... So I did a little preliminary research. There was... Apparently, in the 90s, there were a bunch of Power Rangers comics, but they were all based on Mighty Morphin, I think. So, like, from 94 to 95, there was by... I forget the name of the studio, but some studio that starts with an H, Home something, made, like, a 13-issue run that was just... I think it was original content. And then after that, Marvel got the license and started making adaptations of the movie and then, I guess, the first 2 seasons of Power Rangers. And that was, like, another, like, 30 issues, but... I imagine the ones that you're reading are the 2016 stuff. Yeah, the Boom stuff.
The Boom ones.
Which I've heard a lot of great things about that, and not that I don't understand. Well, I don't understand, but not in like a negative way. I edited one of the complete stories for it, and it seemed interesting, but just this is something that I've always struggled with like sort of like 90s properties of. For a little context about me, you said you're 30. I'm almost 20, and so I was born in 98, which it's like slightly before or after the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and all that time. And there are people like my friend that I mentioned who super got into that stuff, but for some reason I could never get into it. So my philosophy on it has always been like, if you didn't grow up with it, it's really tough to enjoy those characters nowadays. Do you sort of agree, or?
I can understand that to an aspect. They are a little bit, I don't know. It is very like 90s, like you
Mhm.
said. People who grew up in the 90s are going to love them. Today, though, the comics that they have, the Boom is doing an amazing job with them. Um, Even from a non Power Rangers fan, I could see people getting into it a little more just because they go darker
Oh,
than the
okay.
cartoons.
That's good. That definitely
Yeah.
attracts.
Hmm.
Do you think they're trying to hit the market of I guess kids who grew up on it and are now like your age or around that?
They're definitely going for that. Like they want to entice the people who grew up with the Power Rangers,
Hmm.
but they don't want to give them the cheesy Power Rangers they grew up with. They want them
Yeah,
to have actual like story and all of that to it.
that's awesome.
Hmm.
So because I don't know anything about Power Rangers, can you explain to me who that there's five of them, right?
Yes.
Okay. Who are all of
Yes.
they?
So so first off, the original team, you have Jason the Red Ranger,
Hmm.
Kimberly the Pink, Zach the Black Ranger, Trini the Yellow Ranger, and Billy the Blue Ranger. Later on in the series, they introduced Tommy the Green Ranger,
Oh.
who, if you don't know, Power Rangers' biggest villain is Rita Repulsa,
Hmm.
and she has the green morphing power and gave it to Tommy,
Oh, okay.
making him the Green Power Ranger, mind controlling him so he would work for her. And eventually the Power Rangers beat him and knock the sense into him, and he joins them as the sixth member of the team.
Okay. So is who I remember who's the White Ranger? There's a White Ranger, right?
That Tommy takes on the White Mantle, who is
Okay.
the Green Ranger.
Right.
He gets rid of the green altogether and becomes the White Ranger, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Because it was supposed to be Jason,
Hmm.
but I think they gave it to Tommy. My memory could be a little fuzzy, because in the comics they touch on it a little when they go to the dark multiverse, or not multiverse, but the dark universe for the
Yeah.
Power Rangers. Jason was getting the White Ranger powers when evil Tommy attacks.
Hmm. That's so the powers that they're given, is there some sort of like I don't know.
They get their power through the morphin grid.
Okay, I was gonna ask if there's some
Yes.
sort of like higher being that gives them their morphing power. Is that just the grid?
Yes. Shoot, my memory is Zordon. There we go.
Zordon. I've heard that
Zordon
before.
gives them the power
Okay.
from the morphin grid, and they all get their morphin coins. And you know when they're about to go, it's morphin time.
Yeah.
And they morph, and all the fun stuff happens.
Hell yeah. So I what? Because I'm trying to put this in terms of like traditional superhero comics and superheroes in general. Do they have like powers
Yeah,
super strength and
enhanced
stuff like
strength
that?
and all of that stuff. And then they'll have enhanced strength, combat, and all that fun jazz. And then they get basically Zords,
Mm-hmm.
where they can make the Megazord,
Right.
but they each have a different animal,
Mm-hmm.
or dinosaur, I should say, associated to each of their power.
Is there a lot of like because I know there are like a billion different versions of the Power Rangers, but at least
Yes.
in Mighty Morphin is there a lot of like sort of like Spider-Man has a lot of animal themed villains. Is there a lot of like dinosaur prehistoric themed stuff in there?
Not really. They're more just giant monsters.
Oh, okay. So sort of a Super Sentai mixed with kaiju type thing.
Well, that's the thing. You know Super Sentai?
Mm-hmm.
That is Power Rangers.
Right. That's
So,
I've always been curious about Super Sentai as like a brand because there's like one Super Sentai show and it's Power Rangers.
yeah.
And then there's a Spider-Man Super Sentai show that happened for like a hot minute. And I think is Voltron, is that considered Super Sentai?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I think that's its own thing.
Yeah. But do you know much about other Super Sentai properties or just Power Rangers?
No, just Power Rangers mainly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't think anyone knows much about other things. Cause
I do know, like, in the first series of Power Rangers, not the cartoon, the
the show.
actual
Yeah.
show, All of the scenes where they are in the suits
Mhm.
is from Super Sentai.
Okay. Cool.
It was filmed in Japan and then ported over and dubbed and all that fun jazz.
Nice. That's where you get the fun, like, just over the top acting for the
Mm-hmm.
dubs and stuff. That's always
Yeah.
fun. Cool. So switching gears sort of more into the show and the movie sphere. A Power Rangers movie came out, what was it, last year? Or 2 years?
I think so.
Last year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if the general consensus was that it was fine, but like Power Rangers fans loved it, or if it was the other way around. What did you think about it?
I enjoyed it
Okay.
as it's new. They try to go Mighty Morphin, so it's like the same
Right.
power coins they're getting, but in a different aspect.
Gotcha.
Um, so I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't. It was just called Power Rangers. It wasn't called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but it basically followed the same characters, but a little differently.
Gotcha.
They tried to go away from the super racism they did over the original, where like the Black Ranger was the African American,
Uh-huh.
the Pink Ranger was the super preppy girl, the Yellow Ranger was the Asian,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that.
So,
So they tried to change it so it wasn't
a little more modern.
exactly.
I getcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I've seen a lot of jokes about that of
Mhm.
just like the Black Ranger is just a black dude and you're like, "Can you be like a little more inventive here?"
Yeah.
Come up with some better coloring.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I still haven't seen the movie for context. I think I was supposed to go see it with you guys when I was up there when the movie came out, but I don't know what happened. I probably fell asleep or something. But
Oh, you were there.
were you there? I don't remember.
Yeah. Because I saw it with everybody.
Yeah.
I thought you were there.
I was there, but I think I was like sleep deprived from the flight in,
Maybe.
so I just
That would make
passed out in the
sense.
hotel. That sounds like me. But yeah, so this is something that I was just confused by when it came out because of rights and stuff, but I guess they still do this. There was a Justice League Power Rangers crossover in the comics.
Yes.
Did you read it?
Yep. I did.
Was it good? What happened there?
It was good. So basically, what happens is they're fighting Lord Zed, one of their bigger villains.
Mhm.
Something happens. Zack ends up crossing over, and they end up in Gotham. I believe it
Oh.
started in Gotham because they ran into Batman,
Mm-hmm.
and they had no idea who Batman is.
Yeah.
And one of the best lines of the comic books, I think it was the Flash says, "Well, in their defense, if I just I didn't know you and I ran into you, I would have thought you were a bad guy too."
Yeah.
So they end up fighting and then join forces to go back between. They go to. I can't remember if it was Gotham or not, but they're chasing Lord Zed there, and then people get into Angel Grove, which is the Power Rangers' hometown, and they're basically going back and forth between the two,
Gotcha.
trying to stop Lord Zed and various other villains.
Okay. So so seeing the Power Rangers in the DC universe would you at all be interested in similar to what's going on with, well, we don't fully know, but similar to what's going on with the Watchmen right now? Would you be interested in if DC ever like fully buys Boom Studios or just gets the rights to Power Rangers? Would you want to see them as like mainstay part of the DC universe or multiverse?
I would. I mean, not every single issue is them going up against or teaming up with a DC person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind occasional team-ups like that. I thought it was pretty cool. I know it got mixed reviews from both fans, like, this is stupid, why are you doing this, or this is awesome, things like that. But personally, me, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I would read it, as long as it was still the Power Rangers, and then DC, and then occasional a mashup between the two.
Yeah. I could see that. I think like a good comparison to draw it would be if DC ever does decide to do this, well, or just, buys the rights, because they probably could. Like, because Big Hero 6 is technically in the Marvel Universe, but they're never talked about because, they got a movie, and then for some reason they didn't give them a comic for the movie. And then they just don't get talked about. But they're technically there. So if they wanted to tell stories with them crossing over there, could. Or even like the X-Men, honestly. Like the X-Men, sort of stay in their own universe and pal around occasionally, and they'll grab certain characters for other books.
Mhm.
Like, when Wolverine was an Avenger and an X-Men and like just
Part of the
murdering.
X-Force
Yeah, he
and
was just
this and that. He did his own thing.
right. He's just on every team
Uh-huh.
imaginable. So, sort of more of a meta question here. What do you think draws you to the Power Rangers? Cause for me, there's not a whole lot like at face value that interests me. Just looking at this group of people, just in like suits, morph suits.
To me, the big aspect was growing up with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. And then you start reading like their comics, and you get drawn into it more because they go deeper than the show could have. They go darker than the show could have because it's not meant for kids anymore.
Mm.
They're aiming at the 20-plus-year-olds who grew up with the Power Rangers, hoping to draw them in. Maybe some new people. Um, the biggest entice, I don't know. For me, is just that.
Yeah.
I don't see what it would be for other people, like you're saying.
Right.
I don't know why you would start reading it if you didn't really grow up with it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah. That's like the that's always been the biggest problem for me with comics, and I'm sure a lot of people who aren't into comics struggle with this. Is it's really tough to make someone who's never heard of a character or hasn't had any exposure to a certain character to like that character.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard sell to be like, hey, here's I'm gonna use Spider-Woman as an example because of course, here's this woman who was bitten by who was injected with spider DNA as a child and now is a superhero. It's like, why do I care?
Mm-hmm.
Like Spider-Man is like any superhero, really, any popular superhero. Like, here's a guy whose parents died, and then he decided to war, like, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I can't speak today. It's like a hard sell, and I have that a lot with like when a new book comes out, a new number one, like a DC or a Marvel number one, because that's all I read apparently. And it's not a character that I'm familiar with, and this happens a lot with DC, just because for some reason I can't attach myself to DC characters as much as I can Marvel.
Yeah.
It's tough to be like, yeah, I'm gonna get into this character, and like it's a lot easier, like you were saying, with if you grew up with a character or if you were exposed to it and in an easier light, like a movie or a TV show or something. It's easier to, like, you open up a comic and you're like, this feels safe. I feel home. Like, I'm reading something that I know. Like, if I picked up an Iron Man comic, that's why I started, like, my first comics were Iron Man books because of the movies. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel weird. This doesn't feel unfamiliar. And seeing other characters that were dropped into the books, even through, like, reading an event that has Iron Man in it, like going to read Civil War and then reading Captain America for the first time in Civil War and being like, huh, Captain America's interesting, and then going to read Captain America. So I honestly think, circling back to the Justice League Power Rangers crossover, I bet that got a lot of people into Power Rangers.
I think so, because it's like, oh, there's a whole comic line for them now, as opposed to just the show you grew up with. Like you were saying, it's a hard sell. Here's these 6 teenage kids fighting giant monsters.
Right.
It's like, why would I want to read that as a 30-something-year-old adult?
Yeah. It's definitely very cemented in its time, and tough to sell right off the bat, especially with just at face value or just describing them. But I did look at some of the art, and looking at some of the art from that complete story that I edited, it's beautiful. Like the Boom books are really pretty. And some of the moments in there, like I guess spoilers for some issue, I don't remember which one it was, but there was this moment where, like, I guess because of course the world was going to end or something, and one of the Rangers had like a really like hard, tough, emotional moment with another character in it, and I was like, huh, I didn't expect that from a Power Rangers book.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean, a little backstory to the first comic series, the one you edited. So what happens is they face this new bad guy, the Black Dragon, who turns out to be Lord Draken, who turns out to be an evil Tommy Oliver, who is the Green Ranger.
Okay.
So in his universe, when they first fought, the Power Rangers defeated him, and he got his mind back, he went back to Rita. and
Hmm.
stayed evil,
Mm.
as opposed to joining the Power Rangers, and ends up in that world basically almost killing all of the. He kills Billy, the Blue Ranger,
Okay.
like straight up kills
Oh
him.
man.
I believe he kills Jason, the Red Ranger, and takes over his power and fuses the Green and the White Ranger together to become Lord Draken and have more power.
Hmm. Dang.
So there's a much deeper, darker value. What happens is Billy ends up in the dark universe trapped. And all of his friends are like, oh my god, it's so good to see you because you've been dead. And they end up giving him Billy's coin from there to be able to morph and help everything out. But there's a lot of like touching moments like that you wouldn't expect from a kid show.
Yeah, for sure.
Or like dark moments that you would expect from the kid show. Like back in the day, you wouldn't see anybody die.
Yeah.
Really, because they're not going to kill somebody in a kid show.
Right. And I think that's something that's so cool about like modern superhero comics or just comics in general. And would you consider Power Rangers a superhero comic?
I would,
Yeah, I
because
think I
they're
would too.
enhanced individuals they use weapons.
Yeah.
But they're basically like Batman.
Yeah. And that's something that's so cool about the modern superhero comics is that even if it's just like a popcorn action like fun book, I feel like the best stories always have some sort of emotional center, something that you can relate to as like a normal Joe Schmo human, because you're not gonna. It might be cool to see the Power Rangers fight a big dragon man, but like if that's all you're getting, what are you gonna take away from that other than that this art is pretty? And it's nice to like leave it feeling good, or even like when I read a Tom King book, I pretty much never leave it feeling good, but
you don't.
But I enjoy
you enjoyed
it.
the run.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading about how Batman tried to kill himself once, and like Jesus, okay.
Oh, okay, that's dark.
It's like, all right, chill, Tom King. I know you were in the CIA and you probably saw some shit, but jeez.
You're giving me too many of the feels,
yeah.
and not the good feels.
No, not the happy tears, the sad ones. So speaking of writers, not Tom King in particular, but I don't know who's the creative current team behind Power Rangers.
It is. I have this fancy craziness right here.
Oh man, signed.
I don't know if you've seen that. It's signed by Billy, Kimberly, and Tommy currently. I got to meet some other people, but it's Kyle Higgins is the author.
Okay. Has he done anything else, or is this his claim to fame?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
Fair enough. This sounds.
I can find out though while we chat about it.
Yeah. As you look that up, I was gonna ask if there's any like what would your dream creative team be for a Power Rangers book?
That's a really good question.
Thanks, I made it myself.
I don't know. I've always liked Robert Venditti as an author, mainly because I really like the Green Lanterns also.
Yeah.
And it kind of falls in the same aspect as Power Rangers a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Like, seeing what he would do with them. Unfortunately, art-wise, I don't know many artists by name, is the hard part.
I'm trying to think if I would have any, like... I mean, I'm not attached to the Power Rangers, but I'm trying to think if there was like a specific team for me that could draw me to a Power Rangers book. I mean, you put Matt Fraction or Tom King on anything and I'd read it, but...
I don't think Tom King
could handle Power Rangers right, but like think of it this way: if Tom King,
everybody's dead, Angel Grove's destroyed,
everyone's sad now. But if you saw Tom King's name attached to a Power Rangers book, would you not buy it and at least see what was going on?
Would. Who's writing Injustice right now?
Tom Taylor.
The other Tom. I think he could do it.
Tom Taylor could do a great Power Rangers book, yeah, for sure.
Just because all the stuff happening in Injustice right now, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah. I was Jason Aaron also sort of came to mind, just because he seems to have a good grasp on mythos and sort of many characters interacting. He's writing Avengers right now. He's been the like sort of father of the Thor books for like the past 4 or 5 years, and he has taken that character to new heights.
Yeah.
So that I would definitely. I'm just naming like favorite writers, but
the art in Sideways I really like.
Yeah, I haven't checked out Sideways. I've heard good things.
It's great. You like Spider-Man?
Yeah.
You'll probably like Sideways.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Basically, Sideways, he doesn't have Spider-Man's powers, but he's a kid, you know, all that fun jazz.
Yeah.
He opens rifts and stuff, and he's just trying to figure out what he wants to do,
Okay.
as opposed to just being a superhero.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's probably more of like a grounded, down earth type book.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So, who does the art? Kenneth Rocafort.
Oh yeah, he did the Ultimates too, and some other stuff. His art's great. His layouts are crazy.
Yeah, I feel like his art style would work great with Power Rangers.
That'd be cool. That it's more sort of gritty, and he does. I don't know if he does this for all of his books, but in Ultimates too, he had these layouts where just like there were no panels. Basically, it just there was just like designs of crazy stuff going on everywhere. It was wild, and it fit that book really well because Ultimates the not the Ultimate Universe Ultimates, the 616 Ultimates, because Marvel's dumb. It was the spacefaring guys with Blue Marvel, and I think Black Panther was on that team too.
So the artist for most of the Power Rangers comics is how do I say this name properly? Henry Prestia. Prestia.
Never heard of him.
He did Power Girl.
Oh, okay.
In 2009 to 2011. That's the most. He did do Green Lanterns, The Guardians. It looks like. But those are like the two biggest things I've seen next to the Power Rangers that he may have done.
Gotcha. Cool. I honestly, from what I saw from Power Rangers, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much how much this would fit like the. Well, so I have this problem where I start before I say the thing, I start contradicting myself. So I'll spit it out. Gurihuru. Do you know who Gurihuru is?
No.
So they're a team of I think 2 people who they're artists that usually work for Marvel. Did you read Gwenpool?
Yes.
They're the main artists on Gwenpool.
Okay. And
I think they do a really solid Power Rangers book.
Yes. That art style would work, I think.
Yeah, because Gwenpool is very much that like sort of very very happy zany sort of style, but with an emotional center that isn't shoved in your face like a Tom King type thing. But yeah, so a couple more questions here. What do you think sets the Power Rangers shows apart from, or the shows or the comics or whatever, just Power Rangers in general? What do you think sets them apart from other superhero stuff?
That's a tough one. I don't know if there is anything specific that would set them apart from your everyday superhero type comic.
Yeah.
They have the same everyday problems. Mm-hmm. They have the same, oh no, this giant catastrophic world-ending event is happening. I need to stop it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I think the one thing that would set them apart the most would be there isn't anybody else to help them, really.
Right.
It's mainly just them, and they go.
Yeah.
Even when it's a new team, if there is a giant world-ending event, they have had, all of the Rangers come together before, from all of the different seasons.
Like a Spider-Verse, but for Power Rangers.
Exactly. But, there you go. You named Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
It's basically the same exact thing, except it's this. I believe, I could be wrong. Power Rangers fans out there, if I'm wrong, let me know. It's all the same universe.
Okay.
Just in different areas.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
I could be wrong, though. I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I always assumed it was just, reboots or different tellings of the Power Rangers story.
No, because it's different, so the Mighty Morphins have, dinosaurs and stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's, ninjas and things like that, so...
Yeah, I think I watched a little bit of Mighty Morphin, and I watched I think I watched some of the Ninja one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I watched some crazy stuff. I was more into, and at the time, I was more into Digimon and Pokemon and stuff like that.
That's fair.
That's what was
I
taking
got
up my
into those
time.
too because Power Rangers. Well, after Mighty Morphin is pretty much my Power Ranger knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really do much after that.
Yeah. So why do you think that? Because I feel like, as an outsider looking in, it seems like Mighty Morphin, like the original Power, it seems like they're the only ones that get adapted or like get a reboot or get more attention. Why do you think that is?
Well, you are mostly right. There's also currently there's an event going on in the Power Rangers comic. It's called Shattered Grid,
Okay.
and there's two groups of Power Rangers going. There's two comic lines right now by Boom.
Oh, really?
Mighty Morphin and Go Go Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah, I've seen. For some
Yeah.
reason I assumed they were the same book.
They're not. Go Go follows a different team altogether.
Okay.
But I think Mighty Morphin gets so much of the attention. They started it.
Hmm.
They were the first in America.
Okay. So just it's sort of like they're similar to like the nope. Example lost me. Just because they were the first, do you think that's why?
That's my biggest thing. They were the first. So when I got that comic signed by Amy Jo Johnson and Jason David Frank,
Mm-hmm.
the line of people to get their autograph was mostly for Power Rangers, of course, and they were all around my age.
Mm.
So like, I've never really seen any other Power Ranger actors like generating lines or even hear about them going to a Comic-Con or something like that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of it does for some reason, like, and I feel like I keep dunking on Power Rangers, or it seems like that's what I'm doing, but I'm not. It's just it's
Yeah.
interesting to me that this thing specifically for some reason is so tied into like a generational thing, or not even like a generational thing, but like a, you know, if you grew up with it or not. Like if because I grew up playing like the N64 and the original Nintendo and stuff like that, so I appreciate that stuff. But I feel like I wouldn't if I didn't grow up with it, because it was before my time technically, but because I grew up playing it, I started having an appreciation for like retro stuff like that, which is probably it goes the same for comics or shows or anything. It's hard to get into something like that, and I'd be interested into diving into why certain properties aren't timeless like that. Of like why Power Rangers and like Ninja Turtles and stuff like that are stuck in the 90s, but stuff like Pokemon just constantly new kids are appreciated into Pokemon and stuff like that.
I think the biggest aspect with Pokemon is the video games.
Yeah.
They, of course, I still play all of them too because I grew up with them and I still enjoy them. They're
Yeah.
great games for it. But new kids are being introduced to Pokemon through a video game as opposed to a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier for that one to keep going. Where Power Rangers, there wasn't really any video game or anything at the time. There were a couple games. I'm pretty sure I played one on Super Nintendo. But it's not something somebody else is going to go back and play.
Right.
This day and age.
Right.
So it's harder for them to stay relevant as opposed to Pokemon. They can keep coming out with new ones because the old fans are going to keep going and the new fans are jumping in and going back and forward.
Yeah.
As opposed to Power Rangers, if you're into Power Rangers, you're not really going to go backwards. Because I guarantee you right now, if I watched a Power Rangers episode today, I would not be able to sit through a whole episode because of the cringe and all of that.
Yeah.
But the comic books bring back what I remember about the Power Rangers for a modern day.
Yeah. And it's probably because it's being written by people just like you. Just like they grew up with it, and this is like, I'm writing Power Rangers through the lens that I remember it, and updating it with my own personal touch.
Because the comics, it's like what I imagined Power Rangers as a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
But if I went back to now, that memory would be tarnished because it would be these people doing crazy moves and suits.
Yeah.
You can see them not hitting things and stuff like that.
And that's I've tried multiple times to, and with varying success, tried to go back and watch the original Digimon stuff, and I still love it, but like especially season 1, where basically every episode is filler and nothing happens. It's hard to just actually be engaged with it. Like, it's good to just, because I think it's on Netflix, if you just like put it on in the background and just sort of play on your phone or play a game and just have Digimon on. But like, and Digimon is, now that I sort of think about it, it's sort of a good comparison to Power Rangers, because they also went through, after season 2, basically every season was a completely new thing, whether it be the Tamers actually becoming Digimon, or later on they went back to like a classic thing, but there were more Digimon in the real world and there was less digital world. They did all kinds of crazy crap. But yeah.
I think that's the problem with Digimon and Pokemon. Digimon tried to change. Pokemon kept the same aspect and just added new Pokemon.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing of that's the comparison I was trying to make earlier of why like the Mighty Morphin, the original Power Rangers, always get adapted. It's the same thing with Pokemon. It's like you're not going to see like 4th gen be put up on a canvas for like the recent the Pokemon Let's Go that was announced at E3 is first generation. It's in Kanto, because it's a safe bet. Like, kids don't care where it's set, and to snare that like older market, you might want to get the like nostalgia. Which, for the record, I would love a 4th gen remake. That would be great. Give us that, or just
there is one,
a 4th gen remake.
Yeah, wait. 4th gen. What one's 4th?
Diamond, Pearl.
No, never mind.
Yeah, there's a 3rd gen.
I'm thinking 3rd,
and that one's
I'm thinking
great.
3rd gen.
Yeah, I played the heck out of Alpha Sapphire, but yeah. So that's Pokemon, Digimon, and Power Rangers apparently have more of a connection than I thought.
Well, they all came out around the same exact time,
right? And that's
I grew up with all 3 of them. I watched Digimon, I watched Pokemon, and I watched Power Rangers. That was like my Saturday morning.
Yeah. Saturday morning cartoons, of course. But yeah, it's interesting to me to think about, like you mentioned earlier, that you think a big part of Pokemon and other properties like maintaining their popularity with kids is the games, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I feel like, and I'm not a parent or a kid scientist. That sounds weird. I don't know much about children, but I feel like if the more you're interacting with something, the more you're going to remember and develop an attachment to it. So, like, you know, when we're younger, we have lower attention spans, and it's harder for us to pay attention to a show. But if we're holding a controller and interacting directly and hearing things and reading things and seeing things, that's a lot more cemented in that. So I'd be interested to see an alternate universe where Power Rangers got more games than Pokemon, and to see if this conversation would be flipped.
It could be, but that's the thing, though. This day and age, again, I'm also none of the things you tried to describe. I don't know much. I don't have kids. Right. I don't know that much about kids. But the kids I do see either are playing games or are on a phone.
Yeah.
And what are the biggest things you can do on that? Pokemon. Right. Pokemon Go is huge. Right. I see so many kids playing it still. That's how Pokemon survived. Older generations are introducing their kids to it because it still plays and acts the same.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think we got to the bottom of that. Yeah. So one last question before we part ways forever and we never see each other again.
Why? I'll miss you.
Because I self-destruct ever. I'm actually a clone of the original Dylan. Oh. He makes me do his bidding for him, so it sucks, but at least I know I'm a clone, you know?
Well, I'm going to have to talk to the original Dylan and figure that out. So that sounds fun.
He's very hard to reach. I don't think you've ever actually talked to him. Huh. Anyway, so I was reading a bit about like general consensus on the Boom Power Rangers books, and apparently they are widely well received by fans and critics alike. Yes. Why do you think that is, and do you think it has anything to do with nostalgia?
Both.
Both? Okay.
I think it has to do with nostalgia and Kyle Higgins' writing. Yeah. And the art is fantastic. It pulls people in. Like, who would have thought this day and age I would be reading a Power Rangers comic and loving it?
Yeah.
It's not just nostalgia for me, it's the actual comic is good.
Yeah.
Like the stories are interesting.
For sure.
Watching it become from Black Dragon to Lord Draken as the enemy in the end of the first like run, which I guess is classified as year one, Lord
Okay.
Draken's origin.
Mm-hmm.
You learn so much more about the Power Rangers, and the writing for it is so good, and the art is like you said. You did like 2 or 3 issues for
Yeah.
one complete story, and you loved the art.
Yeah.
You
It's
thought it was
pretty.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That one scene touched you. Things like that. I think that's the biggest draw. Is the art's good, the writing's good, and the nostalgia goggles can be on at the same time.
For sure. So for someone like me who hasn't really read any of them, do you where's the best place to get started with them?
Um, I would start at number
At
one,
number one.
the Lord Draken's origin.
Gotcha.
Um, I don't know if you can find this exact one, but this book that I have that I showed you is all of year one.
Okay. So it's
It
like what, like 12
ends.
issues?
It's like the first 25
Oh,
issues,
okay.
I
Wow.
think. So the nice thing is, it's not that many issues you would have to buy or read. Um, this is the first. Hey, it's signed on the inside too. What do you
Ooh,
know?
fancy.
So I don't know. I think it's the first 25 issues though
Okay.
are considered Lord Draken's origin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could find it's all on Comixology too. You can buy it by the volume.
Okay.
That's the best place to start because the current one going is still going as Shattered Grid,
Okay.
where basically Lord Draken is out again, and he's wreaking havoc
Sure.
once again, but in a larger scale.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, cool. That was a fun discussion about Power Rangers.
Yes.
I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap for this episode. I know you guys, just as a little sort of house cleaning thing, couple mentions before, this. I've only seen the Patreon comments as of the time of this recording, but a couple of people said that they want this to be a little longer. We're aiming for around 30 minutes for each episode. I think this one went a tiny bit longer than that.
Looks like it's about 45
Okay,
now,
cool.
according to my recording.
So that's good.
Mhm.
But I don't. As demonstrated in the last episode, I'm honestly surprised we went longer because, like, in the last episode we talked about Agent Venom, and I knew some stuff about Agent Venom and just the Venom mythos. I didn't know jack about Power Rangers, so I'm impressed. I'm proud of us that we got this far. Yeah. So where can people find you, Huey?
You can find me on Twitter at Houston_H. That's the easiest place to find me. You can find me on the Comic Story in Discord. Just tag me, Huey the Silent, and my channel is just look up Chef Huey on YouTube. I have one video out so far. It's a work in progress, and we'll see where I go from there.
Perfect. Sounds great. You can find me on Twitter at Auram Alexander and just search Auram's Comics on the Google, and I'll come up somewhere if you're not watching this on my channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're a patron, a Comic Story and Patreon, you're extra cool. If you're just subscribed to my channel, you're fine. But yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye. Thanks for having me.